This is the second video that brings information about Cleopatra and her tragic love. Death and Tom hidden from the world are the themes. Stay tuned with Daily Quiz.
Cleopatra and Mark Antony. Caesar was killed on March 15, 44 BC, after which Cleopatra and the group left for Egypt. A few days later, Cleopatra's younger brother also died. It is also suspected that this death was caused by Cleopatra herself. However, after that, Cleopatra ruled the kingdom with her 3-year-old son in the position of co-ruler. After Caesar's death, civil war broke out in Rome. This was between 3 of Caesar's followers, Mark Antony, Octavian and Lepidus, and Caesar's assassins, Cassius and Brutus. Since Egypt was an important state located in the Mediterranean at that time, both sides expected the support of Egypt. It was during this time that Cleopatra decided to send the Roman legion stationed in Egypt by Caesar to support the side of Caesar's followers. By 42 BC, Caesar's followers won this war and divided the power of Rome between them. Antony was put in charge of the empire's rowdy eastern territories. In 41 BC, Mark Antony invited Cleopatra to southern city of Tarsus near Turkey. Since Egypt's huge wealth and military strategic location, which was self-sufficient in grain, was essential for Rome, it was simply an invitation for politics. It is said that she was told to come to know what she knew about Caesar's death. This meeting was very important for Cleopatra. She took this as a great opportunity to win the friendship of a powerful male party to establish her presence on the throne. She arrived at the port of Tarsus in dramatic fashion. Her late arrival raised the expectations of those waiting her arrival. She reached Tarsus in a magnificent ship with a golden plum, purple sails and silver oars. Cleopatra, dressed as goddesses Aphrodite, lay under a golden canopy. Boys dressed as heroes were around her and girls dressed as sea nymphs. It is said that the ship was filled with scented perfume and that the figurants wafted toward the harbor even before Cleopatra's arrival. And Antony, who considers himself the embodiment of Greek god Dionysus, is said to have been instantly charmed by her. Mark Antony agreed to provide protection to the Egyptian state, and he also arranged for Cleopatra's sister, who was then in exile, to be assassinated. Thus, Cleopatra and her son's right to the throne was further confirmed. However, Cleopatra and Mark Antony may not have thought that their meeting would lead to their final disaster. In 4140 BC, Mark Antony came to Alexandria to spend the winter. It was while his wife Fulvia and children were in Rome. Antony returned to Rome, and within months Cleopatra gave birth to twins. They were Alexander Helios and the Cleopatra Selene. After Fulvia died of an illness, Mark Antony was forced to enter into political marriage. It was with Octavian's half-sister Octavia. Meanwhile, in 37 BC, he returned to Egypt with the intention of raising funds for the long-delayed invasion of Parthia. Meanwhile, Cleopatra and Mark Antony relationship was renewed. According to some historians, the lovers later married in violence of Roman law that restricted Romans from marrying foreigners. In 36 BC, Cleopatra gave birth to another son named Philadelphus. Mark Antony, returning from a failed invasion of Parthia, refused to go to Octavia and stopped at Alexandria. Meanwhile, in 34 BC, Mark Antony declared that Julius Caesar's rightful heir was Caesarion, Cleopatra's child, and not Octavian, Caesar's adopted child. This led to a rift between Octavian and Antony. In 32 BC, the Roman Senate stripped Mark Antony of all his possessions and Octavian declared war against Cleopatra. On September 2, 31 BC, a fierce naval battle took place between Roman forces of Octavian and the forces of Mark Antony and Cleopatra. This is the Battle of Actium, one of the largest naval battles in the world before the birth of Christ. About 500 Roman worshipped and 400 worshipped of Antony and Cleopatra fought here, and Cleopatra led the Egyptian division. Here, Antony and Cleopatra were defeated by Octavian forces. The following year, Octavian invaded Egypt. Antony's army deserted him and joined Octavian. In the meantime, Mark Antony, hearing the false news that Cleopatra had committed suicide, stabbed himself with his sword. But before he died, he learned that the news about Cleopatra's death was a lie. According to historical legends, Cleopatra killed herself by biting an asp on August 12, 30 BC. The venom from the asp causes a lot of pain and takes a while to kill someone. If she killed herself with a snake, it was probably with the deadly and swift venomous cobra. However, no one has ever seen the snake, and the famous bites on her arm could be scratches or mosquito bites. Some historians do not agree with this idea. Some believe that Octavian killed her. Plutarch wrote about Cleopatra's death. What took place is known to no one, since it was also said that she carried poison in a hollow comb. Yet there was not so much as a spot found or any symptoms of poison upon her body, nor was the asp seen within the monument. The Caesarian princes are believed to have been captured and executed by Roman forces, and Antony and Cleopatra's children were taken to Rome. They were cared by Octavia and later married Cleopatra, selling to King Juba of Mauritania. In 27 BC, Octavian became Augustus and ruled a peaceful, prosperous, and expanding Roman Empire until his death in 14 AD at the age of 75. Was Cleopatra a woman to be respected? When we consider the fact mentioned in historical sources, Cleopatra is portrayed as a woman with a strong character who seduces men. According to some fact, it can be said that she was a wise woman who walked away from the standard method. Learning their language and adopting their form of worship can be seen as a diplomatic tactics to get closer to her people. However, it is said that Cleopatra studied several languages. At the time of her overthrow, she traveled to Syria and assembled a mercenary army, demonstrating her unrelenting determination. Her strategy to meet Caesar is a testament to her spot-on wisdom. Her ploy to woo Mark Antony shows that she studies his likes and dislikes well before meeting him. This is a matter of all-time importance as a diplomatic ploy, and it can be suspected that there was a very strong bond between Antony and Cleopatra. Returning from a military defeat in Parthia, Antony stayed with Cleopatra instead of Rome because he knew that when he needed mental relief, he would get it from Cleopatra. From the fact that they were together until the end, It can be suspected that it is not fair to say that Cleopatra only seduced men and fulfilled her desires. It should be remembered here that Cleopatra, who did not leave Caesar until his death, did not leave Mark Antony in the face of victory or defeat. Tomb of Cleopatra. Kathleen Martins is the name that comes to mind with the name Cleopatra. She has been doing archaeological excavations and research on Cleopatra and her tomb for about 20 years. Although there is some opinion that the tomb of Cleopatra is located in the ancient site called Tarsus Magna, which is about 51 km west of Alexandria. Martins, who has been researching for years, says that there is no tomb of Cleopatra there, but some coins and remains of Cleopatra's time were found there. Others who hold opinions on this say that Cleopatra's tomb is in Alexandria itself. As mentioned earlier, Cleopatra is descendant from Ptolemy Soter, who was a general of Alexander the Great's empire. However, the grave of Alexander the Great, who died at the age of 32, has not yet been found. Cleopatra was the last leader of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Before that, 15 Ptolemies have participated in the governance of Egypt. It has not yet been possible to find the tomb of any of the Ptolemaic rulers who ruled this Egypt. More about Cleopatra is written by the Romans from the Roman perspective. Most of them were written long after her time. They seem to have made Cleopatra a sex symbol instead of an intelligent leader. By putting Cleopatra on the level of a sex kitten as a seductress, we can see that her intelligence is being hidden. We don't know if Cleopatra is as beautiful as history says. After all, Cleopatra must have been a woman who had the ability to attract men. But having that ability alone cannot rule a state. It is not joke that a woman handled the Roman Empire and the Roman army, especially while protecting their own kingdom. Kathleen Martin says that Cleopatra hid her grave from the world. Perhaps Octavian and she alone knew where her grave was. Octavian may have done Cleopatra's end honorably, despite the arguments. No tombs or mummies of any of the Ptolemaic rulers who ruled Egypt have been found so far. Cleopatra's mummy or grave will not be found until human history fades.